Oh, Crucible, look how far you've fallen. It's been 579 days since a new Crucible map was added at the time of this video going live. Making matters worse is that only 3 unique guns have been added to the Crucible since the ritual weapon Komodo was created all the way back in December of 2019. Not to mention the fact that the new armor added to the Crucible and Beyond Light is functionally identical to the new Strikes and Gambit armor added at the same time. To pile on to the Crucible's woes, even the basic gameplay has degraded with the passage of time, a process that was accelerated with the introduction of stasis into the Crucible sandbox. Now, half the time you're either frozen in place waiting to die and respawn, or a shuriken comes from Narnia after bouncing off of 3 walls to throw your aim to Timbuktu. Combine stasis with the rampancy of shotguns like Fellwinter's Lie, and you've got an experience that many are simply choosing to opt out of. And the endgame PvP modes, they've been left to rot, especially the competitive playlist, which has had nothing to offer except early season powerful rewards since the old days of pinnacle weapons. And don't even get me started on the state of PC Crucible, which has had rampant cheating ever since the move to Steam back at the launch of Shadowkeep. But despite all of this, I believe that the Crucible can still be saved. At its core, the Crucible sandbox has always been a very fun experience, with some of the best shooting mechanics and movement systems found on the FPS market today. In this video, I'm going to explain how I would overhaul the Crucible. We're going to discuss how the loot structure can be modernized to properly reward time invested, and we will then discuss how the competitive playlist can be revived into a staple of the PvP experience. Let's jump in. So, first things first, we need to overhaul the loot structure for the Crucible to ensure that a player's time invested is respected. Right now, your primary rewards from general Crucible play are post-game drops and engrams earned from Lord Shacks for ranking up your Valor. Unfortunately, the vast majority of your post-game drops are trash blues, Whirlpool legendaries, and then occasionally a Crucible playlist weapon, aka Stars and Shadow, the Keening, and Frozen Orbit. Thankfully, Bungie did slightly increase the drop rate of Crucible playlist weapons back in March, but considering that each of these weapons has 12 perk options in each of the final 2 slots, this really isn't enough of a fix for Crucible rewards, as your odds of snagging a 5 out of 5 God roll are an incredibly low 9,072 to 1, and that is after getting the correct weapon to drop at all. As for your Valor rank up engrams, these don't even contain the Crucible playlist weapons, instead granting only World Loot Pool guns and low stat Cinder Pinion armor. And upon resetting your Valor, you're granted 1 Ascendant Shard for your first reset of the season, and then just an exotic engram on subsequent resets. What this all boils down to is a playlist that grants you mountains of trash to dismantle, a single pity shard each season, and a trickle of Crucible playlist weapons. A trickle that the player has no control or agency over. It's time for the Crucible to offer a more generous loot experience. The first, and honestly the easiest improvement that should be implemented, is to increase the drop rate of Crucible playlist weapons at the end of matches. I would model the drop rate for Crucible playlist weapons in a similar fashion to the old Tier 2 Reckoning system, but in a slightly watered down form since sunsetting is no longer in the game. Basically, you would have a chance to receive a Crucible weapon after every game, with your drop chance increasing until it becomes a guaranteed drop on your 7th game in a row of not receiving a Crucible weapon. Tier 2 Reckoning provided a drop after 4 completions in a row, but you could fail a Reckoning run and not make progress towards a drop at all, whereas in the Crucible, win or lose, Stomp or Mercy, you'd be making progress towards a drop each and every match you play under my proposed system. The next thing the Crucible needs on the loot front is to continue adding 2 new playlist weapons each season. We've seen what a difference just a single new weapon like Frozen Orbit has made. Now imagine a weapon or 2 like this added each season to the Crucible and the other core playlists. Destiny players are simple creatures. We crave loot above all else, and Bungie would be wise to continually sate that hunger. Now, let's dive into how we can revamp the loot for ranking up your Valor. One of the best ways to make Valor matter would be the inclusion of a set of featured weapons and armor with fixed roles for that season that are unlocked by ranking up and resetting your Valor. Historically, Destiny players have loved vendors with rotating stock. Look no further than the mass appeal of the tower vendors changing the perk rolls on the gear they sold every week from Age of Triumph onwards. Bungie themselves seem to already be aware of this, as next season, Ada 1 will sell a random set of armor with random rolls each week, and Banshee will sell a random selection of 6 weapons from the World Loot Pool with random rolls each week. For my proposed system, I would have the rolls on the featured gear change seasonally instead of weekly, as there would only ever be 7 Crucible playlist weapons available to earn at any given time. Whereas for Banshee and Ada 1, they are pulling random sets with random rolls each week, which is an exponentially higher number of vendor possibilities. Let me walk you through how this system would work for the Crucible. For this explanation, let's jump forward in time to the start of Season 15. At the start of each season, the only things available to you would be the selection of bounties to get your Valor up. At Valor rank Brave, the player would earn 3 upgrade modules, and be able to purchase a statically rolled weapon, as well as a class item. Also, a powerful engram would become available at each major Valor rank as well. At Valor rank Heroic, the player would earn 5 enhancement cores, and be able to purchase a second weapon, as well as a pair of boots. At Valor rank Fabled, the player would earn a new shader, and be able to purchase a third weapon, as well as a chest piece. At Valor rank Mythic, the player would earn 2 enhancement prisms, and be able to purchase a 4th weapon, as well as some gauntlets. At Valor rank Legend, the player would earn a new emblem, and be able to purchase a 5th weapon, as well as a helmet. Upon resetting your Valor, 3 upgrade modules would be available for pickup. A reward of 2 enhancement prisms would take the place of the seasonal shader, a reward of an exotic engram would take the place of the seasonal emblem, and an ascendant shard would be available for all Valor resets, not just the first one each season. After resetting your Valor twice, the player would be able to purchase a 6th statically rolled weapon, and finally, after resetting your Valor 3 times, the player would be able to purchase a 7th statically rolled gun. Finally, there is one more revamp that I have in mind to truly cement the Crucible as one of the best uses of your time reward-wise in the game. I would implement a soft focusing system to the Crucible. This variation of focusing that I'm proposing would cut down on bloat and unnecessary features. I'm looking at you, Hammer of Proving. This Crucible version of focusing would also not be as exceedingly generous as some of the focusing systems that I've designed in the past, as those were all configured when the threat of sunsetting was still in the game. For this system to work, we would need to add one new item to the game: Crucible Medallions. In this new system, each time you hit one of the major Valor ranks, aka Brave 1, Heroic 1, etc., you would earn a Crucible Medallion. This would mean that you would earn 5 Crucible Medallions over the course of each full Valor reset. These Crucible Medallions would be used as a currency to select the exact rewards that you want, giving the player a degree of agency in target farming desired weapons and armor. The only restriction I would place on Crucible Medallions is that they would expire at the end of each season. This way, you can't just hoard them in the back half of a season and immediately get the new Crucible weapons at the start of a new season. So, let me walk you through how this would all work. For a single Crucible Medallion, players would be able to choose either a random Crucible playlist weapon or a random Crucible playlist armor piece. The second row of reward options would allow the player to target farm a weapon from a subset of the World Loot Pool. Strikes and Gambit could incorporate a similar system, with each hardcore playlist having a third of the world loot pool available to be target farmed by participating in that mode. For example, by playing Crucible, you could target farm weapons like Last Perdition, 7th Seraph, CQC-12, or Eternal Blazon. To select a specific world loot pool weapon, the cost would again be a single Crucible medallion, as these weapons can be earned anywhere in the game, not just the Crucible, and such common weapon drops don't need to be super expensive to target farm. The third row of reward options would allow the player to target farm a weapon or a high stat armor piece from the Crucible playlist. This would include weapons like Stars and Shadow, the Keening, and Frozen Orbit, and would also include weapons from future releases, so that by Season 15, there would be 7 Crucible weapons to farm at any given time. The cost for a specific Crucible weapon would be 2 medallions, as the Crucible playlist weapons are a more rare commodity than the World Loot Pool guns. Lastly, players would also have the ability to select a specific Crucible playlist armor piece. This selected armor piece would come with high stats, guaranteeing a base stat total of 58 or higher, with 2 stats at plus 16 or higher, similar to the armor that drops from the final boss chest of the Pit of Heresy dungeon. The cost for a specific high-stat Crucible armor piece would rise to 3 medallions, as the only other way to acquire high-stat, spiky distribution armor like this is from in-game activities, making it a very hot commodity. Before we finish up with the loot overhaul, there is one final quality of life update that I would make, not just to the Crucible, but also to Gambit. Right now, the engrams you get from Ward Shacks for hitting each Valor subrank only grant World Loot Pool weapons and low-stat playlist armor pieces. Instead, these engrams should drop only the curated portion of the World Loot Pool that you can target farm for, as well as Crucible playlist weapons and armor pieces. Gambit could be the same way, with Infamy rank up engrams granting Gambit playlist weapons and armor pieces, and a different curated subset of the World Loot Pool, because right now, the rank up engrams are pretty much worthless. This change would make each and every engram exciting, as any of them could actually be a playlist weapon, which is the primary reward we're all after when playing Crucible. And with all of these changes to the loot structure, I think that the Crucible would be an incredibly rewarding activity to participate in, and one that values your time. Now, let's turn our eyes to revamping the competitive playlist, making it a relevant in-game PvP activity once again. With the loot structure for the Crucible revamped, we can now discuss ways to revitalize the competitive playlist. For the majority of D2's history, the competitive playlist has had an identity crisis, swinging back and forth between just a slow-paced SBMM mode to a true ranked playlist that match-made based on your rank, in which dished out blatantly overpowered weapons to get people to participate, and then back to an SBMM playlist that has no unique rewards to offer and is only relevant at all because it dishes out a bunch of powerful gear upgrades early in seasons. Especially since the introduction of Trials of Osiris into Destiny 2 last year, the competitive playlist has basically been in limbo, with the time fast approaching for Bungie to either revamp this mode or just get rid of it. I personally want this mode to stick around, as I think it has a specific role to play as part of a healthy Crucible. First off, I propose that the competitive playlist becomes a 4v4 mode once again. We already have 3v3 for Trials of Osiris, a different PvP endgame activity, as well as 6v6 for Iron Banner, yet another endgame PvP activity. We also have casual 6v6 for Control and other rotating modes, as well as solo play in Rumble. Destiny 2's first year did a lot of things wrong when it came to PvP, but a competitive 4v4 mode was not one of them. The issue was that all of the Crucible at the time was 4v4. In the modern era of D2, I think that having a singular 4v4 playlist would add diversity to the overall Crucible ecosystem. 4v4 allows for moderately frenetic gameplay, but not so chaotic as 6v6, while also still allowing for small team tactics to shine through. The next change I would make to the competitive playlist would be a return to rotating game modes in the playlist itself. Right now, the only game type is Survival, which is a slow and passive Slayer mode that is very similar to Elimination. I think that the replayability of the competitive playlist would go up significantly with more game type variety. I think that a mix between Slayer-based modes and hard objective type modes would be ideal. Clash and Survival would be two good Slayer-based modes, with one being faster paced and frenetic, with the other being slower paced and more tactical. For hard objective type modes, I think that an updated version of Rift, as well as King of the Hill, would be excellent choices. This updated Rift 2.0 would be very similar to the old Call of Duty game type Uplink. In Uplink, the goal is to grab a single drone in the middle of the map and take it to the enemy's base. You score a single point by throwing the drone into the enemy base, and score 2 points for physically dunking the drone into the enemy base. I explained more of the details of this updated version of Rift in my video on improving Iron Banner if you're interested, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. For King of the Hill, I would mimic the rules in place with Halo's version of King of the Hill, where you earn a point for each second your team controls the hill. In addition to the primary competitive playlist, I would also include a special featured Glory playlist each week that is just a single game mode. If you haven't noticed yet, I've been constantly referring to the competitive playlist as competitive and not ranked. I really don't think that a traditional ranked playlist makes sense in a loot-driven game like Destiny. Instead, having the competitive playlist, as well as the featured weekly Glory playlist, be skill-based matchmaking is the way to go. The Survival playlist today is simply skill-based matchmaking, and in all honesty, Glory is just a fancy version of Valor and is a simple ladder climb and not a number that represents skill level. And that's fine. I think that Bungie should lean into Glory being an amped up version of Valor, as it opens up a lot of good design options. You see, one of the biggest debates for the Crucible since its inception has been skill-based matchmaking or connection-based matchmaking. There really is no right or wrong answer, and Bungie is flipped between all game modes being SBMM and all game modes being CBMM for all of Destiny's history. This featured weekly Glory playlist could serve as an excellent way to satisfy both sides of the aisle, as this special playlist would rotate between all of the Crucible game modes, not just the 4 game types in the main competitive playlist. You want to play SBMM 6v6 Control? Wait for it to come around as the weekly Glory playlist. Perhaps you instead like to earn Glory in Rumble. Well, a week or two a season, you'll get your wish. Hell, if you're brave enough or crazy enough, you could even venture into SBMM Scorched or Mayhem to earn Glory in a given week. By emphasizing Glory as just another seasonal progression system and not as a number meant to indicate skill, options like this become available. With the decision to make Glory another seasonal progression system, it needs to have enticing rewards that make Glory something worth pursuing. I propose that a new once per season rewards track be implemented for Glory, and each Glory subrank, the player would earn a powerful engram, just like they do today, except now you would be able to pick them up from shacks at your leisure, which is how things already work for Valor. Just a simple quality of life change here. At Glory rank Brave, the player would earn 5 upgrade modules. At Glory rank Heroic, the player would earn a new shader. At Glory rank Fabled, the player would earn a curated masterwork version of one of the 2 new Crucible weapons added to the game that season. This would harken back to the days of earning pinnacle weapons at Fabled, but with this new system, it would simply be a unique version of a Crucible weapon that can be earned from non-Glory modes. This would avoid the Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten situation, where players who earned pinnacle weapons had an absurd advantage over normal players. But players who do want to engage with a competitive playlist would still be fairly rewarded for their efforts, which is something that is not happening in the game today. At Glory Rank Mythic, the player would earn a special universal ornament of one of that year's Crucible armor pieces. This could be a holographic add-on to the base armor piece, similar to the ornaments for the Trials of Osiris armor that were earned from going flawless during the Rise of Iron era. At Glory Rank Legend, the player would earn a curated masterwork version of the other new Crucible weapon added to the game that season. At Max Glory Score, aka 5500, the player would earn a new emblem. This emblem would be the same over the course of a year of content, and hitting 5500 each season would add some kind of marker or other guild to that emblem itself, so you can show off your accomplishments. After hitting max glory, you would now be able to reset your glory. Since all glory-based modes would be SPMM, it doesn't matter what your personal glory score is. You'll be matching the same people regardless. Now, you may be wondering, why would I reset my glory? Especially if the rewards track is just a one-and-done system. The key to all of this is that while playing glory-based modes, you would earn a Crucible medallion, not just at each major glory rank, but at all sub-ranks as well. This would give another incentive to play the competitive playlist, as you'd effectively be earning 3 times the amount of Crucible medallions if you're winning, not to mention the fact that you still earn Valor while playing in glory-based modes. Over the course of each glory reset, you'd earn 15 Crucible medallions, as opposed to the 5 from a Valor reset. With my new system, you wouldn't miss out on any exclusive weapon rewards if you don't play comp, but your time would be supremely rewarded if you do play comp. And finally, I would implement one last carrot to chase for the most hardcore PvP players. I propose that the top 500 players in terms of total glory points earned at the end of each season should get a special legend title that they can wear for the next season. If these players don't get top 500 again the following season, they would lose access to the special title. It'd be a season-long version of the glowing armor for going flawless in Trials of Osiris. Bungie already has exclusive 24-hour emblems and world-first belts for hardcore raiders to chase, so I see no reason why Bungie can't throw a similar cosmetic bone to the game's most dedicated PvP players as well. And with all of these changes, I think that the competitive playlist would be a thriving part of the Crucible ecosystem once again. And just like that, we've come to the end of another video. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed this latest installment and how we can continue to evolve Destiny 2. The Crucible has honestly been the most contentious topic for the duration of the franchise's history, with the player base jumping from one meta weapon to complain about to another at the drop of every patch. What is more problematic, however, is how poorly supported the Crucible in Destiny 2 has been when it comes to worthy rewards, new maps and modes, and supporting the endgame aspects of PvP. It is clear that Bungie needs to put their money where their mouth is and truly deliver on their promise to have a renewed focus on PvP. I was originally going to have a final section to this video about how to balance the Crucible sandbox, going in depth about what still needs to be changed about stasis, the current special ammo economy, and the lackluster state of most primary weapons in the game. However, this quickly ballooned into a topic worthy of its own video, so I'm thinking that that's what I'll be covering next week. As always, if you want to support this channel, make sure to leave a comment down below, drop a like, and hit that sub button. Have an amazing week, guys, and I hope to catch you all in the next one. This has been your host, Kujay. Cheers.